Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are diving headfirst into the messy, glittering, multi-billion-dollar world of Hollywood.
It's a fascinating place.
Oh, it really is. And this isn't just about, tracking box office numbers or who won what award. We're going deeper. This is about the existential angst at the core of the entire industry.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, the deep structural conflict between creation and, commerce.
Art versus the bottom line. It's the oldest story in Hollywood.
It is, but it feels like it's reaching a boiling point. Our listener, The Learner, brought us this incredible stack of sources, and they're all sort of centered around a viral, just truly explosive commentary from an established actress.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
Probably. She recently called the entire movie business an evil capitalist hell.
Right, yeah. That definitely made waves.
It really did. And that statement, that's kind of the gravitational center of our deep dive today. Our sources let us dissect exactly why a person working inside that system would feel that way.
And maybe more importantly, why the studio executives, the alleged devils in this capitalist hell, might actually agree with the sentiment.
But for completely different reasons.
For completely different, purely financial reasons. That's absolutely right. The core conflict we're unpacking today, it's not really philosophical, is it?
Yeah.
It is the fundamental tension between artistic aspiration, the desire to express something unique and meaningful, and the raw, just relentless profit motive that drives every single major decision. Our mission today is really synthesis. We're taking those two seemingly opposed viewpoints, the artist who is demanding creative freedom and the studio that's demanding return on investment, or ROI, and showing you how they're inextricably linked.
They're two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. We need to understand the studio's perspective, why they abandon prestige for IP, why they demand this immense ROI, and why all their strategic shifts are driven by, immediate financial necessity.
And this isn't just academic, is it?
Oh, not at all. Understanding what drives those decisions at the top is crucial for anyone trying to navigate or even just critique the creative landscape today, especially when you are looking at why a major corporation might greenlight a sequel to a Talking Badger movie over a nuanced original drama about you.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. If we're going to understand the critique, we have to start with the people who hold the purse strings and make the strategic call.
The studios.
The studio. We often hear this lofty language about film as this crucial form of art, a reflection of our humanity. But the sources you provided give us a cold, hard look at the financial reality, and it starts with a major strategic pivot reported recently by The Hollywood Reporter.
Oh, really big one.
Yeah, we're going to zero in on the Paramount case study because it shows this shift so perfectly. The source material details a very calculated, very public strategic move by Paramount away from making awards-based movies.
The Oscar bait.
The Oscar bait. Yeah, the kind of mid-budget dramas that used to define a studio's pedigree, they are now explicitly, openly moving toward what is described as blockbuster, down-the-middle IP stuff.
Intellectual property.
Things that already exist and have an established audience.
And look, this strategic direction is not arbitrary. It's a direct and very measured response to the brutal new market reality. 20 years ago, a studio could take a gamble on an original drama, right?
For sure.
They knew that even if it flopped theatrically, the eventual sales DVDs, Blu-rays, cable licensing, foreign sales, all that would create this long tail of revenue that eventually made the film profitable.
That long tail, it's just gone now, isn't it?
It's been utterly severed, just completely cut off by the streaming model and the collapse of physical media.
So what's left?
Today, the primary path to profitability is the massive global opening. That's it. They have to generate tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in the first 3 days.
That is immense pressure.
It's unbelievable. And when you are operating under that kind of pressure, you eliminate risk wherever you possibly can. And the biggest risk is always introducing an entirely new concept.
An original idea.
An original idea. So the most reliable path to generating that profit, to making your money back almost immediately, is to tap into existing intellectual property that the audience already knows, loves, and trusts. It is pragmatic, business model 101.
Even if it's creatively disappointing for some.
Even if it's creatively disappointing to those who want original material. The math is just too compelling to ignore.
So the sources, they cite a fantastic illustrative example of this strategy work. It's the Sonic the Hedgehog film.
Oh, yeah. Great example.
They're explicitly called a fantastic example of Paramount's new successful playbook. And you can see why, right? They tick every single box.
Every one.
They're based on IP that people already love, a video game franchise with a multi-generational global fan base. And crucially, the sources note the films are honest and honorable towards the material that it was based on.
That phrase is so important.
It is. Help us unpack that phrase. Honest and honorable. It sounds like an artistic comment, but what does it really mean in terms of pure ROI?
It's entirely financial. I mean, 100%. When you adapt existing IP, you have a ready-made audience. They're already there. If you betray that IP, if you radically change the main character or, ignore the source material, you risk alienating that built-in fan base.
Which is the only group you can count on.
They are the only reliable group guaranteed to buy a ticket on Friday night. The Sonic team, famously, they listened to the feedback after that first terrible trailer.
Oh, everyone remembers that.
Everyone remembers the teeth. And they redesigned the main character. Now, that was expensive, no doubt, but it was an investment in honoring the source material, which translated directly into fan goodwill and massive ticket sales.
So it was a financial decision.
It eliminated a major financial risk factor. Audience reject. They bought back the trust of their core demographic.
So in this new risk-averse environment, the IP itself is the safest investment. The stars, the directors, they're almost secondary to the brand name.
In many cases, yeah.
Which brings us to a really fascinating point about the actors themselves. The sources assert that actors are often caught in this weird, almost absurd internal conflict. They see themselves primarily as artists, believing they have some kind of profound responsibility to humanity.
Which sounds very noble.
It sounds noble, but it often collides with reality.
The sources argue that, despite their lofty self-image, they should fundamentally view themselves as capital. Their professional value to the studio is purely derived from their ability to generate a strong return on investment.
Right, it's a numbers game.
It's all it is. If Robert Downey Jr. is cast in a film, it is because the studio has calculated that his involvement will yield, say, a 10% higher box office, which more than offsets his massive salary. If they're doing their job right, the studio makes money because of their involvement. They are ROI generators.
And the high-cloud actors are absolutely integrated into this capitalist structure. It's right there in their contracts. We hear the term back-end deals thrown around all the time. These individuals often receive a direct financial share of the revenue when a movie succeeds at the box office. They are not just paid for their time. They're directly invested in the corporate success of the product.
Which makes them partners in the capitalist venture, whether they like the term or not.
Exactly. But this is where we need to address a critical detail that really fuels the entire capitalist hell debate, right? It's Hollywood accounting.
Oh boy, yes.
If an actor gets a back-end deal, say 10% of the film's net profit, which sounds great on paper, what's the reality of that money actually material?
The reality, as, chronicled by decades of industry complaints and lawsuits, is often zero, nothing. The net profit definition in Hollywood contracts is notoriously, almost brilliantly designed to protect the studio.
The ultimate cynical capitalist.
It really is. Even a massively successful film that pulls in hundreds of millions of dollars globally, like, say, Coming to America or even the original Harry Potter films, can, through corporate bookkeeping, technically report zero or even negative net profits.
How is that even possible?
It's because the studio, which owns the film, charges its own internal divisions massive fees for distribution, for overhead, for marketing, for interest on the initial investment.
So they're paying themselves.
They're paying themselves with the movie's money. These fees are often inflated, and they're all deducted before net profit is ever calculated. So the studio corporation makes money, but the film itself is structured on paper to break even or lose money.
Which conveniently means the actors and writers with those back-end deals never see that promised money.
Never. It's perfectly legal, utterly cynical, and it's absolutely vital to understanding why an insider, someone who's been through that, would call it an evil capitalist hell.
That distinction is so vital. It starts as a corporate product, a line on a budget, a risk profile, and the studio's goal is to ensure they, and really only they, maximize the financial return.
Even if they have to zero out their creative partners.
The sources describe it perfectly. The movie is a corporate product that masquerades as art. The artistry is, in their mind, secondary.
It has to be. From the studio's perspective, the actor, the director, the writer, regardless of their passion or their perceived responsibility to humanity, is merely one tool in a whole host of elements.
The IP, the marketing budget,
the release date, the distribution network, all the things the studios use to ensure they turn a profit. You are a valuable tool, a very highly paid tool, but you are not the entire machine, and you are certainly not the ultimate decision maker when it comes to the finance.
So we've established the studio's financial calculus. Their spreadsheets demand IP consolidation and ruthless profit protection. But how does that reality land on the people who actually consider themselves artists?
Yeah, that's the other side.
Let's pivot now into section 2, the artistic critique and the viral claims made by Kristen Stewart. She didn't just, express dissatisfaction. She went for the structural throat.
She did not hold back.
No. She characterized the entire movie industry as an evil capitalist hell that hates women, hates marginalized voices, and straight up is racist.
Yeah.
These aren't just complaints about a bad edit. They are incredibly sharp, sweeping accusations aimed directly at the financial and structural core of Hollywood.
And she didn't just critique the system, right? She suggested an immediate radical solution. She said, we need to start sort of stealing our movies.
Stealing our movies. It's highly inflammatory language. It's designed to shock and provoke a reaction.
It certainly did that.
It did, which prompted a very witty, immediate counter-question in the sources we analyzed. What exactly does stealing our movies mean in a modern context? Does she mean we should head to the high seas, metaphorically speaking?
Or literally go to platforms like Pirate Bay to illegally download content?
Right. The source uses the 2019 Charlie's Angels movie, which Stewart starred in, as this pointed, slightly humorous example. If you want to watch the 2019 Charlie's Angels, which struggled mightily at the box office,
It really did.
should you have pirated it? The implication is just so clear. Stealing is a strange, self-defeating way to support the art and artists you believe in.
Because piracy destroys the very revenue stream needed to make more film. It's cutting off your nose to spite your fate.
Totally. But if we look past the provocative nature of the word stealing, her critique focuses on the immense structural barriers within the industry.
And that's a more interesting point.
It is. She expresses deep frustration that the terms, rules, and structures created by the industry, and again, the irony here is key, which includes the very union she supports, have created unbelievable barriers for artists to express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
She claims this environment makes it so impossible for people to tell story, rendering the position of a successful filmmaker or actor an exclusive and rarefied novel position to be in.
So she's talking about
A massive gatekeeping structure designed for exclusivity, where only the financially powerful can even get a seat at the table, let alone get a film.
This is exactly where we have to zero in on the paradox. And this is crucial for you, the listener. Stewart expresses deep appreciation for She says we would not survive without them. Yet she simultaneously attacks the very rules and structures those unions help enforce.
The ones she claimed create these exclusive barriers.
Exactly. It's a major contradiction.
Let's break that down because it's the core of the financial argument against the artist's position. Unions like SAG-AFTRA, IAC, the Writers Guild, they exist primarily to protect their members.
Of course. Fair wages, workplace safety, health benefits, that's their function.
They do this by standardizing and ultimately increasing the cost of labor. For the major Hollywood productions, this standardization is a non-issue. They have the money.
It's a line item in a massive budget.
Right. But for the marginalized, low-budget filmmakers Stewart claims the industry hates, these union rules are often the single biggest barrier. For example, a union mandate might require a minimum crew size of, say, 40 people, even for a very simple scene.
And all of them paid union scale, with benefits.
Or they might mandate strict turnaround times and highly penalized overtime rates, which a small indie film can't possibly afford.
Absolutely. If a young, independent filmmaker wants to shoot a small, nuanced drama about their experience, they might have a budget of, let's say, $150,000.
Okay.
If they shoot that film non-union, they can pay their small crew a reduced rate.
Wow.
They can manage the schedule flexibly. People wear multiple hats if they try to go union, which is what the established system demands if you want to use certain actors. That $150,000 budget skyrockets.
What?
Immediately to maybe $500,700,000 just to cover mandated payroll and insurance for that difference, that $500,000 gap. That is the unbelievable barrier that prevents those stories from ever being told by new voices.
So to criticize the system for being exclusive, while at the same time praising the structures, the unions that enforce that exclusivity by creating these immense financial hurdles.
It's logically challenged. It really is. You can't have the highly paid protections the union provides without also enforcing the cost structure that keep genuine independents out of the game.
You can't have it both ways.
Then there is the ideological the claims of racism and the sex. Stewart explicitly connects the lack of specific demographics in film to the industry being racist.
And the sources acknowledge that the industry is certainly attempting to rectify its past structural imbalances. I mean, we've seen the rise of DEI programs, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right, and the implementation of specific representation requirements by the Oscars for a film to even be considered for picture.
Well, wait, doesn't the existence of DEI initiatives in these specific Oscar rules prove that ideology does matter, even if it's just to manage public perception and social?
It proves that managing social risk matters, yes, but not necessarily that ideology supplants the profit mode. The crucial analysis offered by in the free market of global cinema, these ideological concerns are secondary goals.
The bottom line,
Always. A studio doesn't implement a DEI program because they've had a sudden moral awakening. They do it because it manages their public image, it qualifies them for awards prestige, and it potentially taps into new, underserved global audience markets.
All of which serve the bottom line.
All of which serve the ultimate bottom line. The argument suggests that the ultimate unyielding driver of opportunity isn't ideology, it's box office. If a project led by a diverse team delivers $1 billion at the box office, that team gets infinite opportunities.
And if it flops.
If a project led by a diverse team flops, they do not get more opportunity. The market is ultimately brutal and blind to everything but finance. The studio only hates one thing, as one source starts, not.
That sentiment, it just cuts through all the glossy PR, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A business is driven by profit. They can hold summits, give awards for marginalized groups, use all the flowery language they want, but at the end of the day, they need to turn a profit.
That is the only constant.
And that need for profit takes us directly into Section 3. The cold, hard financial realities that studios use to justify their risk-averse strategy and the move toward reliable IP.
Yeah, and this section underscores precisely why studios feel compelled to pivot to IP blockbusters and why the creative gamble is becoming extinct. The sources reveal a sobering data point that needs to be absorbed by anyone critical of the system.
Which is?
Most movies, even many that you hear about, are not made. The industry, despite the occasional massive success story, is largely a high-risk gamble where failure is the common denominator.
And even when a success story hits, the profitability is often much, much murkier than the press releases suggest.
That's a huge point.
Yeah, take the example of Zootopia, cited by our sources as a massive, rare exception, a movie that truly made a crap ton of money at the box. But even in this best-case scenario, the profitability is complicated significantly by global distribution realities.
Right, let's follow the money trail here for a moment. Zootopia grossed over $1 billion worldwide. Sounds incredible.
Feels like a home run.
It does, but the sources point out that $500 million of that box office, half the global take, came from China. And here's the kicker. In the Chinese market, foreign studios like Disney only keep about 25% of that revenue.
So $500 million in gross revenue from their biggest foreign market suddenly becomes, what, $125 million for Disney?
Exactly. And that $125 million then has to be factored against the film's massive production cost, well over $150 million, plus the hundreds of millions more spent on global marketing.
Wow.
Suddenly, even $1 billion blockbuster success is fighting tooth and nail to be hugely profitable, especially after all that notorious corporate accounting we talked about kicks in.
The margins are just razor thin when you're dealing with investments over $200 million.
They are. You have to spend a fortune to get a movie made, and then you only see a fraction of the growth. And it's so easy for a film that appears hugely successful to still technically report loss, or at least highly reduced profits, after all those internal fees are factored in.
Given these high stakes and the immense difficulty in securing true, undisputed profit, it's no surprise that traditional validation metrics, like the award shows, are being fundamentally dismissed.
They really are.
The sources dismiss awards as an exercise in self-congratulations that ultimately don't matter to the bottom line.
I mean, that's harsh, but it's getting truer.
I want to push back on that slightly. Didn't winning an Oscar used to matter hugely? Didn't it validate a film's quality and lead to huge sales?
Historically, yes, absolutely. An Oscar nomination or a win translated directly into a massive profitable boost in ancillary revenue. Back when home video was king, an Oscar meant years of residual sales from VHS, DVDs, and eventually Blu-rays.
That long tail again.
That long tail. And that revenue stream is essentially dead now. An award today provides prestige, which is nice for an internal memo, but it doesn't provide a guaranteed financial return.
And they matter least when the pressure is high.
Exactly. When the economy is volatile, when movies aren't selling reliably at theaters, and when corporate consolidation is rampant, studios absolutely cannot afford to prioritize prestige over profit. Awards are a luxury only afforded to financially secure projects. They are not a driving financial force in this new land.
Speaking of consolidation, let's look at the structure of the industry today, because it explains the urge. We are seeing companies merging, dissolving, and forming what the source vividly calls large, gigantic corporate art slop blobs.
I love that term. It's crude, but it's so descriptive. These blobs, whether it's a Disney, an Amazon, or a Warner Bros. Discovery, have one primary goal: growth.
Either growing subscribers,
as seen with platforms like Netflix, or turning a profit via global box office, which is the traditional studio model. They are operating on a scale where artistic efficiency and, algorithmic relevance absolutely trump individual creative.
The Netflix example highlights this perfectly. They make a bunch of crap that nobody cares about, algorithmically generated and often ideologically inclined content to fill necessary slots.
But they succeed.
They succeed because they were the first in the floor in the business model for that market, prioritizing distribution scale over content quality in the early days. They are golden because their business model prioritized subscriber retention above all else.
Now contrast that with the established studios.
Yeah.
The sources point out that even Paramount, the first studio to hit $4 billion a year in what is otherwise described as a fledgling year for theaters.
$4 billion? That sounds great.
It does, but they are already facing extreme immediate financial pressure. Why? Because $4 billion in gross revenue is meaningless if your corporate debt is too high, or if you've spent $2 billion trying to build a streaming service that hasn't broken.
And the result?
The result is that they are already in exclusive negotiations with Netflix, and there are even talks of a hostile take Paramount.
That is insane. If hitting $4 billion means you're still a takeover target, then no studio has the luxury of prioritizing art over financial stability.
None whatsoever.
That vulnerability leads us back to the central risk assessment we started with. Creators complain constantly about lack of fulfillment or studio meddling, but we have to ask, who is truly taking the massive financial risk here?
It's the studio. It's always the studio. They're the entity funding the production, the massive global marketing campaign, and shouldering the risk of catastrophic failure. The risk an actor takes is often merely make a movie that doesn't creatively fulfill you.
But they still cash the check.
They still collect the multi-million-dollar paycheck. They always take the money up front.
The handling of David Ayer's Suicide Squad is a textbook example of this dynamic, and it's a necessary illustration of studio interference.
A legendary one at this point.
It really is. The sources describe it as a Frankenfilm that was utterly ruined by Warner Brothers meddling. They were reportedly terrified by the dark tone.
After Batman v Superman got hammered for it.
Exactly. So they brought in a trailer editing company to create a more fun pop aesthetic, and the film ultimately became nothing more than a glorified music video by the time it was finished. Creatively, Ayer's vision was destroyed.
But financially, the source points out that the studio's financial risk management, even in the midst of creative chaos, often pays off in the immediate term. Despite the creative issues, the film still made a significant amount, between $700 and $800 million globally.
Which was massive back in 2016.
Huge. So while the artist's vision was destroyed, the studio mitigated the financial risk and, by forcing a more palatable tone, generally ensured the venture was profitable enough to justify the sequel.
So the critique that studios ruin art is often true, especially in the pursuit of mass appeal. But the counter-argument is that the studio has the financial leverage and the right to meddle precisely because they're the ones taking the financial fall if the project fails.
That's the whole thing. If you want great, uncompromised art that creatively fulfills, the sources suggest you have to be willing to go to the plate and take a big swing and risk that yourself.
And that pivot from complaining about the system to taking personal financial responsibility for your art is the logical next step.
And it's the heart of our Section 4, the independent work.
Right. The core challenge facing the complaining artist is absolutely clear. They want all of the creative freedom and the benefit of expression, but they fundamentally don't want to take the risk that the movie makes no money.
They want the best of both worlds.
They want the prestige, the massive distribution network, and the reach of the big studio system without having to adhere to its profit-driven rules and financial meddling.
And this unwillingness to take the risk extends well beyond the production budget. It includes the colossal cost of marketing, which the sources note is a massive separate division at all.
The P&A budget, prints and advertising.
Exact. For a major blockbuster, the marketing budget often equals or exceeds the production budget. Making the movie is only half the battle. Getting billions of eyeballs on your posters and trailers and convincing an audience to actually show up is the other half. And the studios foot that enormous necessary bill. That's the financial reality the independent artist has to face.
So what are the viable workarounds for creatives who feel marginalized and want absolute freedom without the studio strings attached? The sources lay out a clear, almost utopian path.
The self-funded model.
Powered by the democracy of modern distribution. The formula is simple, but it requires immense effort. You gather your team actors, directors, writers, lighting crew, set builders, all the contacts you've made over the years.
People you trust.
People you trust. You get together, you fund and make the movie yourself, maybe through investment, crowdfunding, or simply paying everyone what you can afford.
And the barrier to entry for distribution has essentially collapsed. Once the product is finished, you can put it on YouTube, Vimeo, or you can enter into a deal with aggregation platforms like Amazon Prime Video, Tubi, or even specialized stream.
You completely bypass the corporate art slop blobs entirely.
By building your own infrastructure and taking the direct financial, you own the content, and you reap the rewards or the loss.
And the sources point out that there are actors already successfully executing this model. Nicole Kidman is cited as someone who puts her money where her mouth.
She's a great example.
She doesn't just complain about the lack of roles. She uses her massive influence, her production company, and her resources to empower women directors and writers and actively funds the projects she believes.
She is leveraging her capitalist success, paycheck from the studio house, to pursue artistic goals outside the traditional fine.
Which points to the fact that meritocracy still exists,
Yeah.
right? Especially when you're talking about delivering actual box office results that audiences crave. I mean, you look at the colossal simultaneous successes of Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Barbenheimer.
Barbie, helmed by Greta Gerwig and led by Margot Robbie, grossed over $1 billion. Oppenheimer, led by Christopher Nolan, grossed $900 million. These are proof points that audience enthusiasm and strong creative vision can still translate into massive financial delivery.
Even in a post-COVID consolidated market.
For sure. And the analysis here is crucial. These films succeeded not because they were just IP, but because they were event cinema driven by clear, strong directorial vision and massive calculated marketing campaigns. And the result is immediate reward.
Absolutely. The directors and actors who deliver most at the box office get the most up. Greta Gerwig, for example, is now directing the Narnia universe for Netflix. This is not the industry hating women or marginalized voices. This is the industry at its highest level, rewarding people who deliver immense, undeniable profit.
Regardless of their background or previous experience.
They are getting the keys to the next kingdom because they succeeded wildly in the free market test.
Another incredibly powerful example of this self-determination model, bypassing the old system entirely, is the success of the Critical Role folks.
Oh, a perfect example.
They took their passion project, a long-running independent Dungeons & Dragons web series, and turned it into a massive multi-million-dollar animated success over at Amazon, starting with The Legend of Vox.
And now with their newer show, The Mighty Nine.
Exactly. This is the blueprint for true creative freedom. The creative force behind it, Ashley Johnson, who is a veteran, recognizable actress from Hollywood shows like Blind Spot.
Right, she's been around for decades.
She chose to pursue a passion project with her friend. They didn't go begging to studios. They went directly to their fan base, launched a record-breaking Kickstarter, securing over $11 million in initial funding.
And that $11 million wasn't just money, it was proof of concept.
That's the key. That proof of concept, that pre-vetted, committed audience, is what they leveraged into a massive development and distribution deal with Amazon. They didn't complain about the studio system.
They built their own system.
They funded it with their community and then negotiated with the major players from a position of undeniable strength. The sources suggest this is the model for the future. Fund projects, get investment, and do the work rather than just complaining about.
I mean, look, if you want your genuinely independent projects, your communist directors, your communist writers, your communist set designers, as one source provocatively suggests, you can all get together, pull your resources, and make a movie on YouTube that reaches millions of people every day.
The audience is there.
The audience is there. Netflix already considers YouTube its only existential competition for eyeball. The avenue for expression is wide open.
However, this path forward introduces one final critical hurdle, particularly for high-profile actors who want to embrace the independent, commune-style approach we just outlined.
And it's a big one.
The union struck. You can make an amazing movie for $100,000, but it might not be unionized.
That's the rub. A truly independent, unfunded YouTube or commune style might not be unionized. It might not adhere to SAG-AFTRA or other guild requirements because, as we discussed, those rules make small projects
which raises a serious ethical and professional question for the established artist, right? Would a major actor, someone with high professional stand, be allowed by their guild to make that non-union project? Or even encourage?
It's a tough question. The sources suggest that for true independence and creative freedom outside the capitalist hell, they might need to make a choice. And that choice could mean they must quit.
Wow.
That is the ultimate test of ideology. You love the union for the security, the health insurance, and the residuals it provides. But if the union standards are creating the unbelievable barriers you complain about, you have to.
The security of the established system and the guaranteed paycheck.
Or the creative freedom and the massive financial risk of the non-union path. You can't have both. And the choice you make is the ultimate reflection of where your true loyalty lies, with art or with security.
So what does this all mean? We have laid out the two sides of this intense structural debate in Hollywood. The system is demonstrably not designed to be perfect, nor is it designed to help everybody or every voice. It is, first and foremost, designed to mitigate massive financial risk and make a profit.
And that profit motive is essential for the system's perpetuation, for its ability to fund the next massive project. Let's recall that famous, often recited principle. It captures the cycle perfectly.
The Walt Disney quote.
We don't make movies to make money. We make money so that we can make more movies.
That quote encapsulates the core driver. Studios do not spend hundreds of millions of dollars for fun, for feelings, or even, despite the flowery language they might use in acceptance speeches, to change the world or to reach or to uplift voices.
They do it to turn a profit.
To ensure their own corporate survival. Different movies, whether the blockbuster IP or the mid-budget film, have different target markets and paths forward. But the ultimate goal is identical: profitability. The pursuit of art is a byproduct of the pursuit of money.
And ultimately, the source material suggests that the solution to avoiding what Stewart calls racist, sexist, homophobic, anti-woman movies is readily available now. You don't need to wait for the mega corporations to change their hearts.
You can just go somewhere else.
You can go to YouTube, Kickstarter, Vimeo, or niche creators who are already making the exact right thing you want to watch. Creation and distribution have never been so democratized.
And this raises the final provocative thought we leave with you. In a world where distribution is essentially free, content creation is more accessible and affordable than ever before. Does complaining about capitalist hell in the old system become financially and ethically indefensible?
If you possess the capital, the audience, and the clout, yet choose not to embrace the risk of the new independence.
That's a powerful question. If you possess the money and the professional stand to fund the art you want to see, but choose instead to remain comfortably in the system you despise, collecting the multi-million-dollar paycheck, but criticizing the outcome,
you are tacitly endorsing the very structure you claim is ruining creativity. That is something worth mulling over when you consider the price of true artistic.
Indeed. We've certainly pulled apart the complex, highly lucrative, and frustrating threads of art, commerce, and pure financial survival in Hollywood today. Thank you for joining us for the Deep Dive.